Hey, Off-Season After Dark fans, glad to have you here for episode 13. And we have a friendly face with us, one of our partners on SEC After Dark from Thursdays. We have Bossman, who, as Corey always says, is one half of the Biscuits and SEC combo. We specifically are here, though, to talk about Texas A&M and SEC football. A lot of my Minnesota and Big Ten people have had questions, talked about A&M, wondering, what to expect. So it made sense to bring in someone who's on the ground floor with Aggie football and here to talk about it. So, Bossman, glad to have you here.
Absolutely. Mike, it's good to be here, man. Thank you for having me on. We had you on Biscuits and SEC a couple weeks ago. You did a great job filling in, and we enjoy your show as well. So when you asked us to do this, and Hammer's on the road again, he's out for a little bit of vacation, so he wasn't able to join because I know he really wanted to talk some Aggie football. But for those who don't know,
maybe I'll get Hammer on for a week up to the week leading up to Gamecocks Aggies.
There you go. Absolutely. He would love to do that. But yeah, we're Biscuits and SEC. You can find us at Biscuits and SEC across all platforms, and we'll be sure to promote this one as well. And for those who don't know as well, we're myself, Bossman, Hammer. We both graduated from A&M. I was an Aggie grad 14, and Hank graduated from A&M in 17. So we've been Aggie fans all our lives. Our dad went to A&M as well. So we're most well-versed in A&M football. And then obviously cover all the SEC as well, and just love the SEC as a whole. So going to be fun tonight to talk some Aggie football. And like your friends, I know they have a lot of questions, like you told me, and I understand why. The Aggies are a bit of an enigma this year. They've got a lot of talent, but there's also a lot of question marks. So we can talk a lot about those tonight.
Absolutely. And those of you out there who may not be familiar with their Biscuits and SEC show, you should subscribe to the newsletter. It's fantastic, and you'll get it once a week. So
that's right.
That would be beneficial to you. So let's dive right into Aggie football. I mean, they were year one of Mike Elko. They finished 8-5, had a good season, though the context there is they started a lot better than they finished. I mean, they were one of the teams until the last week of conference play. They controlled their own destiny to the SEC title game, and they just couldn't get across the finish line. I'm not saying this to gloat, but the game at South Carolina was a big change for them. I mean, that was the Gamecocks took it to them, and they weren't the same after that.
No, that's exactly right. And I mean, you're the last undefeated team in SEC play last year, and then you end up dropping, I think it was like 3 of the last 4 or something crazy like that. And the only win that came in there was against your Cupcake. So you lost the last couple of games in the SEC, lose to South Carolina, lose a tough one to Auburn.
That might have been the worst one because Auburn wasn't that good last year. And they had so many chances to put Auburn away and just couldn't do it that game.
Without a doubt. And they had a great comeback, right? I think Auburn went up 21-0. Jarquez Hunter was just going off, and so was Peyton Thorne. And it looked like Auburn was going to run away with it. And then Marcel Reed leads a really nice comeback to get back, to halftime, close to even if it wasn't even. And then from there, they were able to keep it going in the second half. They had those chances, like you said, to put Auburn away. And then I was actually watching the SEC football any given Saturday on Netflix, and they go through the 3 losses of A&M, and it just was like excruciating for me to watch those, full in Technicolor, especially the one with Amari Daniels dropping the ball there at Auburn in the 4th overtime. So, the season did not end as Aggies would want it, and it kind of brought back the TDS, which Aggies know is not TDS. TDS is not the right term. BAS, Battered Aggie Syndrome.
Okay.
So Battered Aggie Syndrome, for those who are unaware, it is just Aggies who have just seen the same movie over and over again for a long time. It goes straight to the joke of Texas 8-4. There's high expectations every single year. And then for whatever reason, A&M ends up in the same place every time. And we've seen the same movie before. So it was kind of similar to that. And I do think, though, that once the season was over and we got into the offseason, Aggies were able to really look back, especially the fan base, and kind of, take a deep breath and look at the totality of the season in year one of Mike Elko and having to put in his culture into the program, had to really root out a lot of, problems in the previous culture with Jimbo Fisher and how that locker room was run. And overall, there's a lot of positives that you can take away from year one of the Mike Elko era. Again, like you said,
absolutely, a ton. Yeah.
Into that last game against Texas. And you had your chances against Texas too. You get 3 turnovers, a pick 6. You have chances to really, and you're on the 1-yard line twice.
Yeah.
And can't punch it in. So you had your chances against Texas. There are a lot of positives to take away from last season, but you also have to look at the negatives as well and say, okay, there's a lot of room for improvement going into 2025.
Yeah, I remember that game. I mean, in the second half, they shut the Longhorns down. Texas's offense couldn't do anything after halftime in that game.
No, they couldn't. The special teams played incredibly well. So there was a lot of things that you should be excited about if you're an Aggie, even with some of the heartbreak, that took place. You're right there, right, against Auburn. You should have had Auburn, right? So you should have had that 9th win there. And then, against Texas, no one expected you to win that game.
No.
In Kyle Field, Texas was, incredibly good. They obviously, made a deep run in the college football playoff.
And it's also not like not all their games were bad. Like shortly before they started losing games, you beat a good LSU and you throttle a good Missouri team. I mean, what did they beat Mizzou? They beat them by like 40, didn't they? Something like that.
41-10, I believe, was the final score.
Okay.
Yeah. So, no, exactly. The early season went as well as you could have hoped, especially in year one of Mike Elko, especially with all the transfers coming in. I remember going into last year, there was a lot of talk, and the question marks for A&M going in was obviously, okay, year one of Elko. But the second thing people were talking about was, all right, well, how do these transfers mesh? We're talking about that for a lot of teams across the conference this year, including like LSU, right, for their defense. Everyone's wondering what's that going to look like with so many transfers coming in. Well, the same question was being asked of A&M going into the 2024 season because Mike Elko backfilled the roster with a lot of transfers. And for the most part, a lot of them did very well. You can point to like somebody like Will Lee, who had a really, really good season last year. He was at SEC Media Days for A&M because of how well he played. And he's expected to be the top corner, maybe one of the top corners in the conference this year. So there were a lot of transfers from last year that Mike Elko brought in that ended up being solid and really helping that team.
And now Ricks would be a decent player now coming from Alabama.
Yes. So there's more transfers that have come in, not as many as there were last year. And those transfers that did come in, a lot of them stayed and now have, another year under their belt in that system.
And it seems like a lot of the transfers they brought in this year, it's not necessarily guys who need to be number one right away. It's guys that'll be depth and you can work in because there were so many returning guys from last year, which is always a positive.
Definitely. I think that you can look at really 3 position groups in terms of the transfers, if you want to talk transfers for A&M. The first one is wide receiver. And that is – A&M was talented at wide receiver last year, but they didn't live up to their potential. Noah Thomas was their leading receiver. A&M has not had a 1,000-yard receiver, I believe, since Josh Reynolds in 2016, I think it was.
Okay.
It's been a long time. So
it is a long time.
Noah Thomas was the leading receiver last year. I believe he was a little bit over 500 yards. And he's now at Georgia, as we all know. But they brought in the transfer from NC State, KC Concepcion. You brought in Mario Craver from Mississippi State. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of talk coming out of camp at A&M that Mario Craver is, he's a burner and to watch out for him. So the transfers that A&M brought in at wide receiver, people are very excited about. My only question there, and we can talk about this a little bit later, is height. They really don't have a lot of size at wide receiver. A lot of speed, some guys who can run routes, not a lot of height.
Like we're talking about Craver being, that explosive burner type guy. I was looking at their receivers and looking at ADT, so average depth of throw, how far downfield the receiver is when you're catching the ball. Concepcion, 6.9 yards. That's in average. Terry Bussey, 8 yards. Isaiah Williams, 6 yards. Those are all pretty normal. Then you look at Craver, 18.6 yards. ADT. So he's catching it downfield.
Without a doubt.
Downfield.
Yeah. So he got a lot of depth in those routes when he was getting balls from Michael Van Buren last year at Mississippi State. So that's the first one to think about with transfers. The second one is defensive line, and then the final one is in the secondary. And defensive line, they brought in a lot of guys who are interesting, have some talent. They brought in Sam Mpemba from Georgia, Tyler Onendime from Iowa State.
Yep.
Yeah, and a couple others as well. So they added
TJ Searcy came in from Florida.
Yeah, Searcy from Florida. That's right. So they added some guys with a lot of talent who will compete for starting jobs and to push some of the guys they already had on the roster, and as well as have rotation. Right, you're going to have a decent rotation now on the defensive line, and I would argue that A&M has had very talented defensive lines now for probably the last 4 years at least. And it even goes back like all the way towards Myles Garrett and guys like that. So A&M has been very talented along the defensive line for a long time now. And I think that while the last year's group may have been slightly more talented or more NFL guys that pop off the page, this one might be more productive. The ones last year, go look at their stats. Even those guys that went to the NFL, Shamar Stork, Shamar Turner, Nick Spurton, okay, yes, they affected games without a doubt. You've watched some tape. They were definitely affecting games, affecting the quarterback. But you look at their stats with tackles for loss and sacks and those sorts of stats, and they didn't really produce at the clip that you expected them to.
No.
So I almost think that, in fact, I believe that this year, this defensive line will produce at a higher clip than what we saw last year. And then finally, the secondary, again, same sort of thing with the defensive line. They brought in guys with a lot of talent who should push the guys who are already on the roster. They brought in Julian Humphrey from Georgia. He should compete for a starting spot. They brought in Jordan Shaw from Washington, who started at Washington, and he should also compete for a starting spot.
And he was at Indiana before that too.
Right. And so you've got those two guys. Will Lee is going to start at cornerback for sure. So it's really kind of three guys who are pushing for that, or really four guys almost, which is Tyreek Chappelle. So Tyreek Chappelle should be back. He's played solid at corner for a while at A&M, but he was out for most of last year with an injury. So he's back from injury. And then you've got Des Ricks as well, who started most of last year. Mm-hmm. And then those two transfers that I just mentioned. So those guys will compete on the other side at corner. Some of those guys may rotate in at nickel. And then, on the backside, you've got Marcus Ratcliffe, who is coming back. You've got Bryce Anderson, who he was actually injured most of last year. They really didn't talk much about that. So we'll see. He didn't have the year that Aggies expected him to have, and I think we will see him in a much better place this year in terms of his production, because I think he should be fully healthy. So really my questions are at the cornerback position. Who's going to fill that second slot on the other side of Will Lee? And then can this defensive line really, push up and end up being, productive and hopefully more productive than the line last year?
That's very good takes there. Yeah, I know. What do you expect out of the O-line this year? The tackles to me look all right. Trey Zune and then Demetrius Crownover both seem like pretty solid players. Yeah. On the inside there, Armaj Reed Adams was at Kansas before. Mm-hmm. We know who he is, and
I'm excited about the offensive line. And we've talked about this on SEC After Dark. We've talked about this on Biscuits and SEC as well, where you look at the best lines in college football. It's not necessarily about talent. It's almost always about, one, your size, and then two, how long have they been playing together?
Yeah.
How senior is your line, right?
Like 2023 Michigan's a great example of that. Those guys that all played together 3-4 years and they road graded everybody.
Exactly. Like when you go back and look at the recent Joe Moore Award finalists, or the ones who have won. And if you just start going and picking off their line, okay, like what was the left tackle? What was the center? What was the right tackle? The guard, whatever. Almost always it's at least four of those guys are upperclassmen. And then maybe you've got one of those guys, who's just a phenom, maybe a freshman or a sophomore who was a 4 or 5 star recruit who just is super talented, right? And just plugged right in. Yeah. So A&M is pretty senior on the line this year. They've got, like you said, Armaj Reed Adams, who should be an all SEC offensive lineman.
He'll be an NFL guard. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Chase Bizantis, he'll play in the NFL as well. So A&M has those two things that I just mentioned. They've got size on the line, and they also have that seniority. And they remind me a lot of the Aggie line from 2020, which got them to that 9-1 season. They were road graders. I believe they finished second in the Joe Moore Award voting. So they have a lot of similarities to that line, and that was A&M's best team in a long time. So
by far the best Jimbo team. Yeah, I mean they were good.
Easily. For sure.
One thing I remember that has stuck out to me about A&M was during the summer you always have, I forget what outlet does it, but basically they interview all the SEC coaches anonymously and get feedback on, you know, the other teams and their impressions and whatnot. Yeah. And they said the overwhelming one that came out with, you know, the Aggies is how much better their O&D lines are under Elko. And they said an opposing head coach said within a couple years, they will be the toughest team in the conference to play in the trenches. And that comes by building a culture and having stability in your program.
That's exactly right. And that's the thing that I think A&M was missing during the Jimbo years. Okay, they had a lot of talent, right? Okay.
It wasn't, they were as talented as anybody.
Crazy talent. Yeah, I mean, they looked like those Alabama lines of old, right? Like during the Saban years where you just would look across the line and you know, I remember hearing media personalities talk about when they would go to an Alabama game and they would just look around and see the offensive line, and then they look at the defensive line, and then they would look across the field at the other team, even some teams in the SEC, and just be like, this is like their line is just so much bigger and so much more talented because all those guys were 4 or 5 stars. And then also depth pieces were 4 and 5 stars during that time. So A&M under Jimbo got to that point where they had some of the most intimidating lines, especially along the defensive line in the conference. But while they had flashes of, you know, serious production and really like blowing games up, and there were certain games, right, where you would just look up and it's like jump off the page, 8 sacks or something like that. Yeah. There was a couple games like that, but they weren't able to have that consistency. And I think the piece was really missing that you alluded to is the culture part. They kind of had a lazy culture, truth be told, and I don't think that they really wanted it. And you could see that in the way they played. And they also lost that, especially when Mike Elko left. Yeah, you saw the difference when Mike Elko left and went to Duke, and how that kind of dropped off. And so now that Elko's back,
there was a reason Jimbo hired him from Notre Dame in the first place.
Yeah, and he was the best coach on that staff, like including Jimbo. So he brings just a chip on your shoulder, kind of lunch pail mentality, like a Virginia Tech mentality almost of you know, just put your nose in the dirt and go after people. And so I think that A&M has that back under him, and I think you're going to really see that over the next couple of years. And I think it really will start this year with this line.
That's a good take. Yeah, I like that, Bill. As a non-A&M person, I'm sure you guys have spent hours thinking about this, and everybody talks about it. But why did it go wrong for Jimbo and how did it go wrong is a fascinating question. I don't know if we'll ever have, there's probably not one answer. There's probably a multitude of answers, but because he clearly is a good coach. The guy won a national title at a different school and was good. He recruited as well as anybody. Like what it took for that to go as bad as it did, I don't know that I'll ever understand it. And I actually always, part of it was going to follow in Florida State, but I always liked him and thought he was a good coach. Then it just didn't go well. And he wasn't anywhere near meeting expectations.
Right. I've spent forever thinking about this. And I was thinking about it in game, during the 5-7 year. And then 2 years ago, right, when and there were so many times where, go back and look at the schedule. Like A&M never was really getting blown out. They were close in a lot of those games, and they just couldn't get over the hump for whatever reason. If there was a couple things that I would point to as to why Jimbo's tenure at A&M didn't work out. And by the way, just to say it for the record, I loved Jimbo Fisher. I thought that he was a fantastic fit at A&M. Yep. I wish that Jimbo had gotten a statue at A&M and that he'd been our coach for 12 years. Yeah. It just didn't work out that way. And
did you see his interview yesterday with Freddie Stevenson?
I saw a couple clips of it. I'm going to go back and watch it.
It's actually a fantastic interview. It's like 2.5 hours long. I've only got through about half of it, but the bit I saw was like he's not blaming anybody else. He's not, throwing anybody else under the bus. He's talking about who he is, and it was good, I thought.
And he mentioned in that interview, I saw a clip about how he's like, I loved A&M.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, we loved him too. Like near the end, Aggie started to turn on him, and that's what happens whenever any coach is having struggles and struggles over multiple years. But I don't think it was ever. We were frustrated with him just because of some of the play calls and different things like that. Obviously, how the seasons were going. But I don't think anybody ever really disliked him as a person. I think for the most part, at least I can speak for myself. I always loved his fast talking thing. He embraced our culture from the beginning. Not everybody. A&M's not for everybody. I'll be the first to say that. But he fit our culture very well. He embraced it from the start, and it's unfortunate that it went the way that it did. If I could point to a couple things as to where it went wrong for him, the first one is culture. I'll point to that. I mean, that's an easy one to scapegoat, but you just see the fruits of the labor and what you saw on the field. And then you go back to his time at Florida State and you start hearing stories. We know the stories about Jameis at Florida State. We know about some of the stories about their 5 stars and kind of getting kid glove treatment there. Well, the same thing started happening at A&M, and it started to come out on the field where, you'd see guys being lazy, especially when seasons started to not go that well.
Yeah.
And then the two other quick things.
It's easy to keep things together when you're winning. That's a very good point. Yeah,
exactly. Especially when you're getting these kids that are, really high recruits. And I'll say this and then I'll finish it up with 2 other thoughts. But when I think that we got really enamored with stars instead of kids that fit the program. And Mike Elko is doing the opposite now. And I think that for a long time, Kirby Smart has done a very good job of that at Georgia. Okay, they can get just about anybody that they want in terms of recruiting, but still they're going through, and for years they've done the best at identifying talent at the top level of the 4 and 5 star level who also fit Georgia and fit the program versus just going after 4 and 5 stars because they're 4 and 5 stars.
Except when Texas Tech pays millions of dollars to sign your in-state guys like they did a couple days ago.
That's true. Well, we'll see how that works out for them because now they're doing the same thing that Jimbo did in 2022.
They are.
Which is just throwing money at kids and saying, hey, just come to Texas A&M. We got money. And, it was all about that versus all about the program and the culture fit. And can you really help us and do your job? And instead it became all about me. And, what are you going to give me? And we saw that with multiple players, and not to name names, but I'll name 2 names, Walter Nolan and Evan Stewart. Those kids were extraordinarily talented, but for the most part, they were there for the paycheck. And not really there for the culture and the buy-in and, kind of the team mentality.
It clearly has worked out for Nolan. Stewart, it remains to be seen. We will not, he's hurt. We will not see him play football this year at Oregon. So who knows? Yeah.
So the final 2 things I'll say about the Jimbo era, I think it's 2 things. I think it's the fact that his quarterbacks were continuously hurt.
Yeah, kind
of his fault because the offensive line and the coach that he hired and Steve Adazio, they were porous. And so constantly you had quarterback turnover. I mean, they didn't have a quarterback start and finish the season since 2020 when Kellen Mond was the starter.
I don't know if it was on SEC After Dark, but I brought this up one time to someone. And, I said, there's a revisionist history world where either Haynes King or Connor Wegman stays healthy and Jimbo still has his job there.
Totally could have happened. I mean, it's extremely unfortunate that they had to go through that. I mean, there was one season, right? The season 2 or 3 years ago, they started 4 different quarterbacks at one time.
That was the year. I think it would have been 21. I want to say because that was the year they came to Williams-Brice, and I was like 6-7 minutes late getting to the game, and it was 17-0 by the time I showed up because the Gamecocks returned the opening kickoff, got a turnover, got another turnover, and I'm pretty sure that King and I think King and Calzada were the 2 guys that played in that game as quarterbacks.
No, I'm sure that's right. And then whenever it was that Marcel Reed came in, so I think Jimbo had been fired by this point, but 2023, they started who was it? It was they started Marcel Reed in the bowl game. They started Max Johnson for a couple games. They started Connor Weigman, and then Connor Weigman got hurt at some point. And then I'm even forgetting one. Oh, they had Jacob Henderson, the Fresno State transfer.
Yep.
So it was 4 different quarterbacks who started during that year. So I think that the quarterback turnover really was a problem for Jimbo during his tenure. And then finally, it was the offense. Everybody talked about that offense for years. And then even when he hired Bobby Petrino, he didn't really give him, total control.
No.
And that was a problem. So while it improved under Bobby Petrino, it was still Jimbo's archaic offense. And he was just stubborn as a mule and refused to update his offense. And he was constantly up there. Stephen Willis, our friend, likes to talk about the Cheesecake Factory menu. And it was true. Yeah. It was too complicated for these days.
When he had the
Yeah.
I always remember that.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's weird how the offensive coordinator and the play calling was a blind spot for him being an offensive guy, whereas he did a very good job hiring deep. Elko and DJ Durkin are very good defensive coordinators.
Yep.
Durkin, obviously, there was the Maryland stuff, and he, was kind of persona non grata for a while. The overall ratings for their pass D was unbelievable when he was at A&M.
Yeah.
DJ
DJ Durkin did a fine job. And, Aggies got a little bit annoyed with them at times because there was a couple games where it was like the Miami game, for instance, a couple years ago where Tyler Van Dyke just threw all over him. But for the most part, DJ Durkin did a good job. The problem was that he followed Mike Elko, and Mike Elko did such a good job that DJ Durkin, didn't look as good in comparison. But overall, he's a good coordinator. And Jimbo's staff, go back and look at his staffs. Like it was littered with guys who were solid recruiters, solid coaches, guys who had a lot of pedigree. But, to some degree, like some of those just really did not work out. I mean, there's a couple that I can think of off the bat. One, obviously, I mentioned earlier, Steve Adazio, who's a, well-respected coach, a longtime Hall of Fame offensive line coach. But for 2 years at A&M, it was terrible. It was unbelievable. Aggies were calling for him to be fired after the first year.
Yeah. Elijah Robinson was a hell of a D-line coach. He's the D coordinator at Syracuse now.
Incredible coach. And I'm forgetting the guy's name right now. But he was
Tyler Santucci was a younger. He came with Elko. He went with Elko to Duke and then was then at Georgia. He's now with the Ravens as linebackers coach.
Well, I'm happy for him because Aggies at the time, we did not like him because our linebacker play at the time was not very good. Elko liked him, which is why he took him to Duke. But the linebacker play when Santucci was there was it was okay. There were times where it was not great. But then the 2 sins that he had was he lost Anthony Hill to Texas and he lost Harold Perkins to LSU, both who at one time were committed to Texas A&M. So
I didn't know the Perkins one, to be honest.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he was committed to A&M and then flipped late in the cycle to LSU, and both of those were pinned on Santucci for better or for worse. But So anyway, those were the 2 coaches. So but again, like overall, Jimbo's tenure, he had probably 80% hit rate on his coaches. They were pretty darn good, which is pretty good, for a head coach to have that type of hit rate on your coaching staff.
Makes me wonder, had he given up the offense and just been the CEO style head coach, could someone have done better as the O coordinator? Say if you let Petrino be the guy and do whatever he wants on offense, would you have done better? Arkansas did a lot better when they did it last year.
Yeah, I'm aware. I think that really frustrated me when I heard Petrino talk about that. And it made sense because we kept watching that offense throughout the year and Aggies were excited, like, okay, hopefully, he's giving Bobby Petrino the reins. And we were starting to watch this offense like through a couple of games and we're like, this looks really familiar. There's a couple of twists. There's a couple of things it looks like Bobby's put in, but for the most part, this looks like something we've seen for the last 4 years. So we were getting a little frustrated with that. And then Bobby Petrino comes out after the season and says, yeah, Jimbo wanted me to learn his playbook. Yeah, well, okay. That was the problem.
Yeah. I don't remember him saying that. That's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did a podcast. I can't remember who it was. I believe it was a Hogs podcast, actually, right after he got hired. And they were just asking him about his time at A&M. And he mostly had, generally positive things to say about it. But one thing he did say was that folks can go find it on Google or something. But he essentially was like, he said it flat out. He was like, when I got to A&M, I was trying to figure out what we're going to do. And Jimbo told me that he wanted me to learn the playbook because he wanted continuity with the kids who already knew the nomenclature, right?
But you're continuing something that wasn't working.
Exactly. That's the thing. Yeah. It's like, okay, hey, I understand that if you want some continuity, and that, logically makes sense to me. It might be easier to implement or have you come in and put your twists in. But at the end of the day, this had not been working for 2 years. And sometimes, even further than that in specific games, going back all the way to like 2021. So.
Yeah. And one of those situations where, like, if you're, Petrino, it's, you didn't hire me because of my name. You didn't hire me to learn your playbook. You hired me because I was a head coach at Louisville. I was with the Falcons. I was at Arkansas. I was at Western Kentucky. My offenses have done a lot at a lot of different places. That's why you hired me.
Well, exactly. To be honest with you, it was a little surprising to me to hear Petrino say that. I think Petrino was just trying to get back into the SEC, and get back into a higher coaching job to try to get, a bigger job. And
you left a Missouri State who he took to the playoffs, and right. You knew was jumping up to the FBS a couple of years later, as they are this year.
Right. So he was trying to get back into the Power Four conferences, however he had to do that. And so this was a good opportunity for him. So I think he took the job knowing that, even though he knew that he probably was not going to have full control of the offense, because otherwise most coaches don't take that unless you're giving me full control.
And Petrino has also been around long enough and is enough of a wily veteran to know that if this goes bad and we all get fired, he's going to take the blame and not me. I'm going to come away from this scot-free.
Exactly. I'll be fine. And I can blame it on him, which is exactly what he ended up doing.
Yeah. Yeah. But let's shift to, we'll do the schedule at the end.
Okay.
One of our usual segments we do is looking at the head coaches of the conference. I'm sure our SEC After Dark users are familiar with us talking about this on that show, but we've only seen it once on Off Season After Dark. To me, with this list, 1 and 2, pretty tough to debate either of those two. I don't know if you can really spin it any other way than those guys are at 1 and 2.
Yep.
I think that 3 through 8 is where it gets interesting, though. I made my own list, parallel to this when we had the Mississippi State guy on, just to compare. But are you in agreement with Kirby and Sark at 1 and 2?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt there, frankly, right now. They've accomplished Kirby's won multiple titles. Sark has been right on the verge of it. He's recruiting at an incredibly high clip. He's got Texas. Finally, I think that Horns can say Texas is back.
Texas is back, yeah.
So I put them at 1 and 2 for sure.
So then we have the next, that next group is where the questions come about. 3 through 5, I have a little different than this. For me, I went at 3, DeBoer. I mean, we're 2 years removed from playing for a national title. We've won at every school we've been at, and we might be being too hard on him. The guy he took over for was a decent coach, to say the least. I mean,
what was his name? It's escaping me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, to say that, he won 9 games and people are saying, if he has a bad 2025, he'll be on the hot seat. Give me a break here, people.
I know. And also, hey, by the way, how soon you guys forget. I'm not sure if you remember a guy named Mike Shula or Mike Price, but
how dare you talk about the game? How dare you talk about the Gamecocks offensive coordinator that way?
Hey, he's made a comeback. I'm excited to see what he does with Lenore Sellers, but we all know what happened when he was at Alabama, and I don't even think all that was on him. But at the end of the day, it wasn't great.
And up until last year, he's been in the NFL since then. This is going to be his first year coach, NFL for years.
Yeah. I think he's fine. I think he's good. He's redeemed himself. I think he'll be a good offensive coordinator at South Carolina. But it didn't work at Bama. But all I'm saying is that hey, look, there has been incredible times at Alabama. They have one of the winningest programs in college football history, but there have been some valleys. And so to say that DeBoer is on the hot seat potentially, if he doesn't make the playoff, like, give me a break.
I mean, before Saban, it was the string of former Bear Bryant players that never succeeded. You had Mike DuBose, Shula, Perkins was okay, but I mean they had a lot of misses in there too. Yeah.
Well, I could be forgetting one in there, but wasn't my Aggie Gene Stallings the last national title winning coach for Alabama until Nick Saban, and that was in like 1991.
Yes, they beat Miami in that one. I do remember watching that game when I was younger. But yeah, they had Bill Curry, Gene Stallings, Mike DuBose. We forgot about another Aggie. Dennis Franchione had that job for a couple of years.
He did. Yeah. Yep. I would like to forget about him. Yeah.
Okay. And he was right before Mike Shula. Yeah.
Yeah, he was. And he was good. You know, Franchione had him going. Like, that was why A&M went after him. It was another Jimbo situation. They threw a money bag at Dennis Franchione and said, hey, come to College Station. And I believe the year before he went to A&M, Alabama was 10-2, if I remember right.
They were. I just looked at that. Yes, they were.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, there's been some peaks in Alabama history, some valleys. I am a big believer in Kalen DeBoer. Just look at his history. I think he's going to get it right at Alabama. And I think he's going to get it right starting this year. Yeah. Frankly,
and now we got him and now him and Grubb are getting the band back together. I think that'll help.
Exactly. They're extremely talented, as they always are at Alabama. He's recruited very well. So I know Alabama fans, they want to be in the playoff and national title every single year. I totally understand that. But I have a little faith. I think it's going to be okay.
And not to throw shade at Jalen Milroe. He was a good college QB, but now they have a guy that fits their system. They were putting a square peg in a round hole with Milroe. You couldn't bench him, but he didn't fit what you wanted to do. Now you got a guy that you got to pick who is going to fit what you're doing.
Exactly. And if he's not the guy, you got two guys behind him who really are talented as well.
You got Keelan Russell and Austin Mack, who followed you from Washington.
Yeah. Right. It might be one of the best quarterback rooms in totality in the country. So
it has to be. I can't think of a top three in the country that's better than that.
I can't either, especially in the age of the transfer portal, right? Yeah. Like it's very hard to have depth at the QB position. Right now, you might have two, right? Somebody who's an upperclassman like a Ty Simpson, and maybe a freshman or a redshirt freshman, or maybe a sophomore who's back there who's waiting in the wings, and then in between that, usually you're filling. I mean, A&M had to do that this year. Mm-hmm. Speaking, going back to A&M real quick, like they've got Marcel Reed to start at quarterback. They've got Miles O'Neill, who's a sophomore or maybe a redshirt freshman, and then they brought in Jacob Zeno, who's a seventh year, I believe, from UAB. So they have some talent there, but not a lot of depth. Not depth like they've had before, and part of that is due to the transfer portal.
You are correct. We are in year 7. Zeno, 3 years at Baylor, 3 at UAB, and now he's at Texas A&M. Yeah,
there you go. So we'll see who ends up being the backup for the Aggies. Yeah. There's a lot. People are excited about Miles O'Neill. I actually heard Colin Klein talking about him yesterday, and he's had a very good camp. So I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Jacob Zeno listed as the backup, or possibly the and/or slash with Zeno and Miles O'Neill. But if Miles O'Neill is needed, or if a backup is needed, I would not be surprised to see Miles O'Neill come in and be the one to get the reps.
And for the Gamecocks, I feel good backup-wise because you have Air Noland, who was a 5-star recruit that transferred from Ohio State.
And I'm hearing too, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing he might even be the third stringer behind, it's like Luke Doty, or there was another one too in there.
Doty's in his 5th or 6th year. No, I'd be surprised if, they might kind of list him there as a courtesy. I would be surprised. I have seen Luke Doty play football, and I do not think he could win SEC games if he was in there.
I get that. Maybe I might be misremembering here, but Beamer said something about it the other day that I caught, where he was talking about how, Air Noland he's been doing well, but right now somebody's in front of him. And I thought he mentioned Luke Doty, which surprised me. That also could be Beamer throwing smoke out there, you know.
Could be.
So,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
but,
that's a good one to know though. But Doty and Cutter Woods is another true freshman who could end up being the guy down the road for them, but he won't see the field this year. But
sure.
with the coaching one, I had DeBoer 3rd, Brian Kelly 4, and Kiffin 5 on my list. So
I could see that.
How do you think you would round out your top 5 after, Smart and Sark?
I put DeBoer in the top 5. I think he's getting a knock just because he's Alabama. Yeah, I put him in the top 5. I think he'd probably be 4. I'd probably put Heupel one above him. Okay. And then I would put Lane Kiffin at the 5, and then I'd probably put Brian Kelly there at 6.
Okay. So, yeah, I went DeBoer, Kelly, Kiffin, Heupel at 6, Drinkwitz, and then Beamer. And I like Eli Drinkwitz a lot. Like, for an opponent, I think Drink is a fantastic coach. But there's so many good guys in front of him, it's tough to put him up there. And you probably could make the case for Drink a little higher, but Heupel made the playoffs last year. You got to give him credit for that.
Yeah, exactly. And what he's done at Tennessee is nothing short of a miracle. I mean, remember what he inherited. It was a mess.
They were awful, yeah.
Completely a mess. And he has got that program right back on track and competing for national titles. He made the playoff last year. Also, by the way, some of the coaches are judged by wins and losses, obviously. And that's what, is happening here with this list. It's always by wins and losses. That's why Mark Stoops is at number 15, because Mark Stoops has actually had a very successful career at Kentucky.
He's a lot higher on my list when we get there. Yeah.
See? So he should be, right? Overall, his overall coaching career at Kentucky has been very successful. But he's being judged on the wins and losses and the recency bias of last year, which was bad. But
I have him at 11.
Yeah, I totally understand that. But, to get back to Heupel there, just quickly, I would say while they're judged on wins and losses, there's a lot of other things that go into how good a coach is. And one of those things is just some intangibles and how they handle certain situations. I think Josh Heupel did a fantastic job of handling the situation with Nico Iamaleava this offseason. He handled it just about as well as he could have. And it was a impossible situation that he was put in. And he handled it about as well as he could have. And so overall, I think that Tennessee has the right guy there for a long time. So I have Josh Heupel high.
And with that Heupel situation with Nico, that was tough because if you handle it poorly or a different way, you alienate everybody else at the expense of keeping him happy.
Correct.
And he probably made the right decision. Now, maybe my words will come back to bite me. Nobody wants to lose a QB that's a redshirt freshman that takes you to the playoffs, but it was probably the better alternative of the two.
Right. And in that sort of situation, you are put in the impossible position, it's the words I've been using for a while on it, because if you make the wrong decision, you are at risk of losing the team. And then if you lose the team, eventually it, trickles down. You can lose the fan base. I mean, hey, I have seen this happen before. I had a front row seat to Kevin Sumlin when he had Kyle Allen and Kyler Murray, and he did lose the locker room because they treated Kyler Murray with kid gloves. Kyle and tried to placate his dad. They had his dad in offensive meetings, which is insane.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they lost the locker. He lost the locker room because of the decisions that he made. And eventually that trickled down to losing the fan base very quickly after that. And then it was pretty much over for him, within the next 2 or 3 years, 2 years. So that can happen, but Josh Heupel didn't. He made the right decision. And I, in fact, think that he galvanized the locker room as well as the fan base to get behind him.
And that fan base there likes him now. They are a fan base that would turn quick if things weren't going well, though.
Yeah,
we've seen that with them before.
But I even think that now with that, they've pretty much have I would say a mulligan year. They can't go 4-8. Everybody will be pissed if they go 4-8. But if they go 7-5 or if they go 8-4, I think that
I think they will. I think 8-4 is because you look even with Nico. I think they still regressed. Dylan Sampson was the best running back in the conference. He's gone. They were the best run D in the conference. They lost most of their front seven. Mm-hmm. They have a lot to replace. And their receivers can't stay healthy right now.
No, they can't. They have a lot of question marks. In fact, I would put them at the top of the conference, top 3 in the conference in terms of question marks. But again,
they'd certainly be up there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Without a doubt.
For me, it pained my heart, but Shane Beamer at 8, as well as Beamer's a guy that took over a terrible situation from Will Muschamp, even though, I don't know if you know this, Muschamp has a Coach of the Week award named after him on one of my sister shows.
I've heard of this. It's a great award. It's a very highly coveted award by coaches across the conference and across the nation, by the way. I heard Kenny Dillingham won the Muschamp Coach of the Week award last week. So I know he's pumped about that.
Yeah, because we weren't sure if they were average at practice or if they were good, but an average team. It was very confusing.
I don't even think he knew what he was talking about, but he was not happy.
But Beamer's great. He's a guy I hope the Gamecocks can keep him. But 8 is fair for him.
Yep.
I also had Elko at 9, one spot, and then I also did have Napier at 10. I bumped up Stoops to 11. His career he's the best football coach they've ever had at Kentucky. Yeah. Those people there don't appreciate him as much as they should. You were a backwater, nothing school before him, and now you're pretty good at football.
The people at Texas A&M didn't appreciate him either. And by the way, I was one of the ones who didn't want him, so I'll just put that out there. But at the same time,
you got a better option, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's right. He just wasn't a great fit. Ross Bjork really screwed that one up. But at the end of the day, he got the right guy in Mike Elko. But it just wasn't the right fit at A&M. It wasn't the right time, and that's why Tex Ags and the rest of the A&M fan base went crazy over it. But again, he is underappreciated at Kentucky. He has had an incredible run at Kentucky. Kentucky has never had a run like they have had under Mark Stoops. So overall, if we're talking about this, again, this list definitely has a lot of recency bias. So I'm with you. I would rank Mark Stoops a lot higher just based on the overall accomplishment at Kentucky.
So I had Stoops at 11, Hugh Freeze at 12.
Yep.
Sam Pittman slots in where he is here at 13. Then I had Venables at 14. I think Oklahoma's better this year, but Venables has only had one good year in 3 there. And it was when they were in the Big 12 still. His first year, they weren't good. Then they did have the good year in the Big 12. Then last year, there was a lot of growing pains in their first year in the SEC. They've had a great offseason. I think Arbuckle was a great hire for Venables, but he has to show it still. It's still a lot of what ifs with him.
Yeah.
I had Clark Lee at 15. And to me, this list is the recency bias you talked about there. He's had one year that wasn't trash.
Yeah.
And that year was still 7-5. They weren't great. They were 7-5. Let's not, call it what it isn't.
Yeah.
And then, or 7-6, sorry, they were. 7-6. But no one's gotten more miles out of one win against Alabama than Clark Lee and Diego Pavia have. Now, that's my soapbox for the night, though, when I become grouchy when talking about that topic.
There's only one man who has, and his name is Kevin Sumlin. He got many years off of one win against Alabama.
Yes, he did. That is fair.
And not even necessarily that, but more so money. He got a lot more money off of one win against Alabama.
Like at least when the Gamecocks beat him. Well, Spurrier was the head coach, and that dude was already in the Hall of Fame. So he didn't make his career by beating Saban. Yeah.
No, exactly. That's right.
But I think Lee at 15. I mean, we're talking about a career 16-33 head coach who, if they didn't win 7 last year, well, if they would have won 5 or less, probably would have got fired. I'm happy for him. Vandy was a great story last year. And the question marks surrounding them this year are a good topic to talk about. But they got to do it twice in a row.
Yeah. Let's see the encore. Let's see what they got this year. You got Diego Pavia coming back. He's extremely confident. Maybe the most confident guy I've ever met, including Johnny Manziel, who I had a up-close seat for. But
That's another one of my SEC bias things that I feel people. Why is Diego Pavia confident, but Thomas Castellanos is an asshole when he does it with Florida State? Like, they're saying the same things basically.
They are, but it's one of those things where you got to prove it on the field, and Pavia has. Castellanos really hasn't. Like, he's got a win or two under there, but if you get benched,
they're both slightly above 500 career quarterbacks. Pavia has a bigger one. I'm not saying he doesn't.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Diego Pavia owns Alabama. He has beaten Alabama. Yeah. He's beaten Auburn. He had Texas on the ropes last year.
He did.
Diego Pavia, to me, at least in 1 year, he has shown it on the field, whereas Thomas Castellanos, I don't know how much he can really back up that.
That's fair. I think that's absolutely fair. Yeah. And Jeff Lebby has to be last on the list. He might do good things. He's been there 1 year and they were awful.
I think Jeff Lebby's a good coach. He's just he's in a very, very difficult situation there at Mississippi State. And again, just, hey, look at that list real quick.
Yeah.
There are ridiculously good coaches all over this conference. It's probably the strongest in terms of coaches that it's ever been. And so somebody has to be 16.
Yeah.
And right now it's Jeff Lebby.
Jeff Lebby, I could see hopefully this doesn't happen to him because it would be nice for Mississippi State to be competitive. But I could see him being in a scenario where after 3 or 4 years he gets fired. He's still a very young guy. And it wouldn't shock me if you see him go back to being an OC somewhere for a couple of years, kick it around, gets another shot as a P4 head coach and makes it somewhere else where the odds aren't stacked against you so much.
I think that I could totally see that happening. I wish the best for him there. I think he's a good coach. I really like him. Watching, again, talking about SEC football any given Saturday, I encourage people. This isn't an ad. Nothing I've done for that show is an ad. I just
Netflix doesn't need us to do advertisements.
No, they definitely don't. So not an ad at all. But I liked Jeff Lebby and everything that I saw from him in those episodes that he was featured in. And so I think Mississippi State has the right guy. They just gotta stick with him. Let's give him 5 years and see what he can do. But even then, man, even if you give him 5 years, like it's going to be tough.
It is. I always ask my guests 2 questions about coaches at the end. The first one is the generic, who's on the hottest seat? My answer is Billy Napier. I want to hear yours. It can be the same, but it can be anybody.
I waffle between 2, and they're actually different than yours, but I think that I would give the edge to Sam Pittman.
Okay.
I think he's on the hottest seat there at Arkansas. Frankly, the fan base wanted him gone after last year.
They did.
Yeah. But due to payout structures, buyout, everything that's kind of swirling around college football, Arkansas is not a program that is in the best position to make financial decisions like that. And so they weren't able to do it last year. But I think that he's in the most difficult position of any of these guys because of the turnover that he has had with the transfer portal. He's had so many guys go in and out of that program in the last 2 years. It's unbelievable how many kids that they have had transfer in and out of the program in the last 2 years. So it's hard to really have a lot of continuity and, really culture. It's tough to build a culture when you have all these kids going in and out. And then he's also had issues at coordinator, right? When the hire of Dan Enos was a disaster, as we all know.
Yeah.
And so he had a strong early start.
Who'd have thought we were in a scenario where Bobby Petrino would be the stabilizing force of your coaching staff?
Yeah, life is funny, huh? But yeah, so I put Sam Pittman up there. My second one was going to be Hugh Freeze. I think that Auburn is getting, it's starting to wear thin there. They're not very happy with where recruiting is right now. And so he's got to put some wins on the board this year. This is the most talented Auburn team that they have had probably since a Gus Malzahn team walked out on the field. And they got to put wins on the board because of that. If they don't put some wins on the board this year, I really do think that Auburn will pony up and get rid of them. And I think that he will be back next year. If I had to guess, I think that he's got enough talent that I think that they're going to be able to get it done, maybe get to 8 wins. But that would be my second one. Then I think Napier's nipping at their heels right there.
the way you worded it there, I think you're right that Freeze is more likely to be back than Pittman, but we're also including age as a factor into this too. And Sam Pittman could be retiring soon. And he's at that age, maybe he wants to retire. Maybe he just wants to go and coach O-line somewhere for a couple of years to, stick around. But I think that's a factor with him. And he's a guy that, doesn't have to prove anything to anybody either, at his age. So
I think he's at the point where, and he said this publicly, he wants to retire on his terms.
Yep.
And so he wants to get Arkansas back to a point where he feels he is leaving the program in good hands to whoever it goes to next. So for him, I think he wants to have a good season this year. And if they can have an amazing season, maybe he'll retire. But good season this year, get the program back to the point where they're winning 8 or 9 games in 2026. And then, okay, let's go retire, have some cold beer, nurse this hip, and go to the lake. He's
another guy who people don't respect how bad the program was when he took over. Chad Morris was awful when he was there. They were just trash. And Pittman, he will leave the job better than when he took over. And that's some mark of a good coach anyway.
I think so. Yeah. I love Sam Pittman too, by the way. I love guys who are great fits at their school.
Yeah.
And I think I talked about it earlier, Jimbo Fisher, I think, was a great fit at A&M just in terms of personality.
Yeah.
Another great one was Ed Orgeron at LSU. I wish Ed Orgeron had been at LSU for 20 years because he was the perfect coach for the Cajuns. And, I think that Sam Pittman is a perfect coach for Arkansas. So I really want to see him have success there. I just worry that for all the factors that we talked about, I put him at the top of the hot seat list.
I would also say this is not here nor there, but Sam Pittman's the most likable of these 16 guys, probably. Like the guy you have lunch with, have a drink, and hang out with. Like,
totally.
He just seems like a nice dude. Yeah.
If I'm a parent and my kid is getting recruited to go to SEC schools, I'm telling him, put Arkansas at the top of your list because Sam Pittman's a great man, a great coach. He's going to get my son ready for both the next level and for life as in total. So I love Sam Pittman.
What if they would respond a question with, is their offensive coordinator a good man?
I think, hey, having been in PR for a long time, you can answer the question that you want to answer. You don't have to answer the exact question. I think you say,
that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
He's a great coach. Bobby Petrino is a great coach, which is why he's here at Arkansas, and we're glad to have him here.
He's an amazing coach. He won everywhere.
Yep, exactly.
And after the hot seat one, my next question, and this one is difficult with the SEC, but which coach is the most likely to get a blue blood job? Now, this one's different in the SEC or Big Ten because the coaches in those two conferences, they're not leaving for many jobs. There's a handful of jobs you would leave the SEC or Big Ten for, and a lot of those jobs might be within conference.
Yeah, I'm looking at this list, and you're looking at like 6 to 8 blue bloods, depending on what your metric is.
It's what guys would actually leave the job they're at, and B, what job would be big enough to pull them away. I have one on this list that kind of plays off of what I said before, but I would like to hear unless you want to hear mine first.
I bet you that ours are probably going to be the same, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to go with Eli Drinkwitz.
Yes, that is mine.
Yeah. I think Drink is a really good coach. I hate to say it, but secretly I love the guy. His little speech at SEC Media Days talking about, I'm not going to talk about the Epstein list. He's cracking jokes the whole time.
My favorite Drinkwitz one was when he walked out there and the first thing he said, at least I got the fight song right.
Yeah. It's hard not to love the guy. I mean, he pulls some ridiculous stunts like the Theo Weiss blanket thing last year.
But when he had the signs at the basketball game and just looked kind of dorky.
Yeah, he's a funny guy. So I like him a lot. But, Missouri is a good program. They've got a lot of history, but I don't know that most would consider them a blue blood.
And I think and I mentioned this last night on the show, but I kind of piggybacked that off of my hot seat one. Mm-hmm. I think if they have a decent year, he's a good candidate for Florida. And you probably leave Missouri for Florida.
Yeah, you probably do. Yeah, he would be my pick. The other one I could see potentially maybe is Clark Lee if he continues to build Vanderbilt, but even Clark Lee's tough because Vandy is his alma mater.
Yeah.
I don't think he's leaving Vandy.
There's two more that I kind of wonder. Say Jeff Levy has a couple of 6, 7, 8 win years. Does he realize I hit the ceiling here? We're never going to be elite, and maybe take another job somewhere else if offered, just seeing the possibilities. And then the thing that keeps me awake at night, the fear behind the closet for me, is if Venables gets fired and Oklahoma would try to hire Shane Beamer away. Because that's where he was an assistant before, and had he stuck around one more year, he probably gets that job when Lincoln Riley leaves. By a lot of accounts say that he would have been the guy there.
Yeah.
And even the Gamecock in me, if Oklahoma offers you, it would be you at least listen to him and talk to him.
You got to listen to him.
Yeah.
You do. But the only thing that I think Shane Beamer loves Columbia, South Carolina. He was a coach there before, as you know.
He was. Yep.
So he's got a lot of history there. And I think he really wants to build South Carolina to get him back to the Spurrier ways, right? The Spurrier winning ways. And whenever you hear him talk about South Carolina, you can tell that he has a deep affinity for the place.
Yeah.
So the reason you talk to Oklahoma is because it's Oklahoma, but it's also because you want a raise, and every coach wants a raise, no matter who it is. So you talk to your agent and you say, hey, get the best offer you can. And then I really want to stay at South Carolina. I'm going to go back over here and talk to the South Carolina athletic department and see if we can't, meet in the middle, or, at least maybe match Oklahoma or get us close, because I would like to stay here. Yeah. But at the very least, let's try to get a raise.
Yeah. And to your talking to your agent notion, I think 12 or 13 of the SEC coaches have Jimmy Sexton as their agent. So they almost all have the same guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
But, but the Beamer one, I like him, obviously. The one that I think is an overblown rumor with him is people say, well, if Brent Pry gets fired, Virginia Tech could offer him. He's an alumni there. Frank was there forever. He's not leaving South Carolina to go to Virginia Tech.
I don't think he is either. And I think he actually talks about this in Any Given Saturday on Netflix.
I didn't see it yet. Okay.
He's it makes sense. It's the same as for anybody, right? At the end of the day, if your dad is a famous coach or just a famous person of any degree, you really want to make your own way. And he talks about that and says, I wanted to be Shane Beamer. I love my dad. He taught me everything I know, but at the end of the day, I want to make my own path, and I can do that here at South Carolina. Yeah. And so I really don't see him, while he loves Virginia Tech, he loves Blacksburg, and he grew up there, I don't see him going back there.
I think that's fair.
Especially, by the way, because he has South Carolina on an upward trajectory, and Virginia Tech has been, kind of treading water now, really, since Frank Beamer left.
Yeah.
It's not an easy job to go back and rebuild.
You had Justin Fuente struggled. Pry is struggling. They're not in a good spot right now.
And both of those guys, I think, are pretty good coaches, honestly. Yeah. So it's in the new era of college football, Virginia Tech is just a tough job.
Yeah. I'm going to add in one coaching question that I haven't done with anybody else, but this applies for Big Ten and SEC more than anybody else. One coach here you could see going to the NFL. For me, it's probably DeBoer. I don't know that you'd leave Bama, but the way he coaches, his style, it makes the most sense to me. Sark would have been the other one I would have said, but tough to leave. You're not going to make that much money in the NFL.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, your chances of winning are a lot tougher in the NFL too. Like you're leaving amazing gigs.
I don't think. I have a tough time seeing Steve Sarkisian leave Texas, especially because of how it went with the Falcons. It was okay when he was there with the Falcons that one year. I would look at two others. I would look at Eli Drinkwitz being one, another guy we talked about a lot, and then maybe Brian Kelly. If things go sideways at LSU or get a little weird, okay, they're 8-5 or whatever, right? And the fan base really starts to turn on him. I could see him look at an NFL head coaching job, and I think that there would be a little bit of interest there because overall he's been an incredible coach, and he definitely knows how to win football games.
Yeah.
So I could see him looking at, say I don't know, the Panthers, right? Just to use an example, but a team that is not very good, maybe in the lower half of the NFL, looking at someone like Brian Kelly and saying this guy has produced winning organizations, and LSU it's a tough place to coach, and maybe we'll give him a shot. But that's a long shot. I really don't know that Brian Kelly has any interest in the NFL. Yeah,
yeah. The one random one I could see with him, or it pops up. You're thinking about another coach who is really struggling, but a program that's been really good. If Luke Fickell would get fired at Wisconsin, that would be an interesting one for Kelly, because it's, hey, I was in the Midwest before. I won a lot of games at Notre Dame. And at LSU here, they don't really like me. They're not giving me the respect I deserve. It'd be one to think about. Like, I could see where both sides are just okay with moving on if you're Kelly and LSU.
Yeah, I could see that. I've got a guy that they should hire. They should look at a guy at Illinois named Brett Bielema.
Yeah.
If I'm Wisconsin, he had success there before.
He did. He certainly did.
He's done pretty well everywhere he's been. So,
yeah. But that's our coaches. We'll move on. We're taking up a bit of time here, but
we got time, man. If you want to roll, we can do a long show. We're used to that at Biscuits and SEC. For those who watch that show, we go to hour and a half a lot. not by design.
No, we got the QB list here, and top of it, I feel like with this one, like similar to the last one, but maybe a little deeper. Those top four, I can't really argue with. The one where it's the question for everybody, where do you have Arch on the list? And I had him a lot lower on my list. Then I started watching him and diving a little more into it. It's like, whoa, he has the tools. He has the skills. He's making good decisions. So then I became higher on Arch as I did a little more homework into him. So I did have Nussmeier 1, Sellers 2. Even the Gamecock and me couldn't put him at number 1.
Mm-hmm.
Him and Legway have the highest ceilings probably, but we got to see him though. I mean, when you stopped Sellers from running last year, those are the teams that beat him because he couldn't do it with his arm. So I actually had Arch and Legway inverted. So I had Arch 3, Legway at 4.
I think that's fair. I'm glad to see Arch not at number 1, frankly, as an Aggie. But also, my bias aside, I just don't think we've seen enough from him. And I do think he's going to be a great quarterback. He has all the tools. I would also say, with Lenora Sellers and DJ Lagway, you said they have the highest ceiling. I think that they do, except for Arch Manning. I think Arch Manning probably has the highest ceiling of anybody in the conference. But Lenora Sellers, DJ Lagway definitely have high ceilings. I'm a huge believer in DJ Lagway. And then Garrett Nussmeier, I think he's the obvious number 1 choice. And going into year 2 as the starter, he should really elevate his game, I would think, as well. And he's got plenty of talent around him in order to be successful. So I think he's number 1. I think that's fair. I think that top 5 is pretty solid. Diego Pavia is pretty high. The one name that sticks out to me on this list is Gunnar Stockton. I think he is way too low, to be honest with you. I look at the games that he had against Texas and the spot that he was put in. And then also you go back and watch that Notre Dame game in the playoffs, and he played very well. He had a lot of drops. His receivers in that game did not help him at all. And I'm a lot higher on Gunnar Stockton than most people are. So I look at him at 12 on this list, and I think that's way too low.
I have him at 14, so that's where I'm at with him. Yeah.
Well, hey, some people are obviously 12. You got him at 14. I just look at those 2 games and I'm like, I don't know what I'm missing. Maybe I need to go back and rewatch him again. But I just think that he's getting dinged a little bit for being put in tough positions in 2 games that he played overall pretty well in. And so he's behind a lot of guys that we haven't seen a lot of. I mean, Austin Simmons, he has a very high ceiling too. I'd probably put him behind those, 3 that we talked about earlier as the next guy.
I had Simmons at 6 where he's at. Mm-hmm. My kind of scandalous take here, I had John Mateer at 5. Big believer in Mateer. He was fantastic at Wazoo. He's with his old coordinator. I've seen enough of him at a pretty high level to think, to warrant him being at 5. You bring up a good point, though, of I'm being way harsher on Stockton than I am on Austin Simmons. Or sorry, I'm being tougher on Stockton than I am on Ty Simpson and Austin Simmons, even though, we haven't seen him play a ton.
Yeah.
You brought up 2 points with Stockton playing well. The defenses haven't planned for him yet, though. And I wonder if there's going to be limitations in his passing game and the throws he can make. Now, I do think his coaches there are among the best in the country. They're going to put him in places where he will be successful. I do believe that.
Yeah, I think so too. And he's also got a much better receiving core this year. They brought in Noah Thomas from A&M. They brought in Zachariah Branch from USC. I mean, there's a lot of talent in that Georgia receiver room. Oscar Delp comes back at tight end. So I really like the position that Gunnar Stockton's in. I personally think he's too low on these lists. I look at Mateer and I'm hearing all the hype. I understand why it's there. My worry with that is that Oklahoma has one of the toughest schedules in the country, and John Mateer has never played an SEC schedule. So let's see it. I'm kind of a wait and see guy with John Mateer. I think that, sure, there's a lot of people talking him up, have watched a lot of tape of him. Jordan Rogers of the SEC Network being one of them. He's super high on Mateer. So I'm interested to see what he's got. I think he's probably good right there around 10 because the Wazoo schedule versus an SEC schedule, very different.
Yeah. No, it certainly is. Yeah, it is a lot different. So I had Simmons 6, Pavia 7, Talon Green at 8, Marcel Reed at 9.
Mm-hmm.
So I
think that's fair. I think
Reed and Green to me they're almost tough to differentiate between those two at this point. I think we both seen flashes. We both seen not so great things. We need. If either of those teams is going to make a big jump this year, it's because their QB is going to be more consistent.
Right. I'm with you too on Marcel Reed. I would fluctuate him between that 7 to 9 spot. I think that's fair. We know everything he can do with his legs. He's got incredible, rushing ability, but the passing has to pick up. And Aggies, the Aggie media has kind of looked at that and said, hey, he's made some great throws. Go back and watch the tape. Yes, that's true. However, there was a great piece on this by Connor O'Gara from Saturday Down South. So I encourage people to go read it. But he essentially said, hey, A&M fans, we have a right to question Marcel Reed's passing ability. And he goes through the different advanced metrics and statistics on Marcel Reed as to why he's making this conclusion. And basically he comes to it. He's like, there's a lot to be desired. And these different metrics that, he only had a couple passes a game in some games, right? Because they were trying to go run heavy. But I think that he will improve as a passer this year for a couple reasons. I think his wide receiver core, like we talked about at the top of the show, is much improved and much more talented than it was last year. And he's got an offensive line to protect him, a very good offensive line. And then also he's got 2 running backs that will, press to be the best in the conference this year, which includes Le'Veon Moss at the top and then Reuben Owens, who should be back fully healthy. So those guys running the ball behind those hogs, those maroon goons on the offensive line should open up some passing lanes for Marcel Reed. So I expect him to be improved as a passer, but he's got to show it.
Certainly does. Yeah. Then for me at so that was 8. Or I had those two at 8, 9, 10. I had Blake Shapen, so I bumped him up 1 from this list. Okay. We've seen Shapen play quite a bit of football, and he's not the problem. If Mississippi State's going to be bad again, I don't think it's because of him. Mm-hmm. He's the guy who, he got hurt. He played 4 games last year. He got hurt, but he had a 8-to-1 touchdown interception ratio last year before getting dinged up. He played a lot of football at Baylor. He's another guy entering year 7 of college football. So I bumped Shapen up to 10. Then Ty Simpson at 11. I had Jackson Arnold at 12. So I'm a little lower on Jackson Arnold. We saw him last year and he wasn't good. And we're in the same conference.
Yeah.
Is how I look at that. Now, there are certainly some people that are very high on Auburn and Jackson Arnold. He's the guy for me that, it has to be a prove it, moment for him. So I need to see Arnold do it before I'm going to really be sold on him.
Yeah, I'm with you. He's got the talent to do it. He's just got to put it together. Another guy I look at on this list, I think he's way too low. Zach Calzada from Kentucky should be number 1 on this list.
Okay.
I make jokes.
How many QBs on this list have beaten Alabama? It is not many.
No, it's not. I mean, looking at it, I'm trying to think. I think it might only be Zach Calzada.
No, Pavia did last year.
You're right. Pavia and Zach Calzada. It might be 2. Yeah. That's funny.
I think it is. I think it has to be only those 2 because
I think it is.
Nussmeier didn't play when LSU beat him, and they haven't lost many other games, and certainly Aguilar didn't beat him at Tennessee. So
no. Oh, you know who the other one is? Jackson Arnold, number 9 at Auburn. He beat them last year.
You're right. Oh, Hawkins might have played that game. I don't know that Arnold. I got to check this out because I don't know.
I promise you, it was Arnold. He played.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He had a pretty good game on the ground, if I remember right. I think he ran all over him.
Okay. I remember that one. I wasn't watching it a ton. I was in and out watching it because I forget who the Gamecocks played, but they had a big game that night. You're right. Yeah. Jackson Arnold, 9 for 11, 68 yards passing. They won the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and there was turnovers from Alabama. Alabama shot themselves in the foot multiple times.
They did.
But But so my one last question for you on this list here: who on this list do you think who could jump up the most? Like who could make the biggest jump on this list? Because I got one name in mind, but I want to hear who you would think.
For me, it's tough not to say Ty Simpson.
Yeah.
Just because of the offense he's in with those coaches. He has maybe the best left tackle in the country blocking for him in Caden Proctor. The receivers are legit. Grubb's there now. So that answer is more about the system than him. If I'm taking a guy who I think could jump up because of himself, I'd probably say Bo Pribula. I think they know Drink knows enough what he's doing. And it wasn't like they waited around and shopped in the portal. They got him right away when Penn State season was still going on. They identified him early as this is the guy we want. And that tells me they see something in Pribula, even though we've really only seen him run the ball a lot so far.
I could see that. That's not a bad bad call out there.
It's tough not to say Simpson though, like looking at the right side of this list, guys. So
that's my thought was Ty Simpson. The only other one I could see too is if we're looking specifically at this list and not ours, John Mateer at 10. You could easily see him,
and he's a 5 on my list. That's why I didn't count him. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Who do you think has the biggest chance to bust? And for me, I have no problem saying it. I think this list or the 2 busts also have to be the 2 with the highest ceiling. Sellers and Legway have the potential to throw up duds if things go wrong for them.
I put Lenore Sellers at number 1 for potential for biggest bust. I'm a big believer in him. I really like him. Yeah. I think I've said this before. I talked about it a little in my 16 and 16 overview of the program on Biscuits and
that was your first one, wasn't it?
Wasn't
that the first one?
Yeah. So I'm just a little bit worried about what he has around him. Nick Harbor. He's got a lot of talent. We've seen some flashes. It's got to come together. And so I don't know about the talent around him and then also the offensive line in front of him to be able to keep him upright all season, but also, does he have enough around him? Are the connections there throughout the season for him? And so I'm not sure that South Carolina is as talented as they were last year overall, just on paper.
Lost a lot on deep.
They lost a lot. So I think that he has the biggest potential to bust here because of how high he is on the list, but also for the reasons I mentioned just on the South Carolina roster.
I think that's absolutely fair. Yeah. So that's a good question. Yeah. This is another SEC Big Ten, more specific one. this can be quarterback. I mean, usually as QBs, but it could be anybody. Who in the SEC has the best chance to win the Heisman Trophy?
Well, if we're just talking quarterbacks here,
it can be. You could say anybody. I'm going to say a QB, and I think. Well, you think I'll say why I think it's going to be a QB. Last year was the anomaly that we had 2 non-QBs finish 1-2. Yep. The overwhelming majority of years, it is the quarterback on a playoff team. Right. I think we revert back to the mean, and that happens again.
Yep. I agree.
So for me, it might be the generic one looking at this list. I'm going to say Nussmeier because I think there's a good chance they're a playoff team. And if they are, he's going to be in New York.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of talent, I'm going to say probably Lagway or Mateer. Okay. I know I was just, talking down about Mateer a little bit, but I know he has the talent to do it. I'm just a little worried about, playing an SEC schedule for a full year. But I think Lagway, in terms of his talent, I think he's the most talented quarterback in the conference. So I think he could win the Heisman, but then you put in the factor of, the team that goes to the playoff every year, or at least is, pushing for the playoff, right? Like,
winning 8, winning 9-10 games usually.
Right. Yeah. Win 9 games, like Lenore Sellers did last year for South Carolina. Right. Okay. Then you're for sure in the conversation.
Yeah. Like if Lagway only wins 7 or 8 games, I don't think he can win it.
No, I agree. I totally agree. He'll be in the conversation, but he'll be super dark horse. Maybe get an invite to New York, but probably not. So I'm with you. It's probably got to be Nussmeier.
The wild card for me is Arch. They got a good chance to go to the playoffs, and he has the name recognition and the buzz. I mean, there are variables he has that nobody else has, and that have nothing to do with him either.
I'm with you too. Arch has the highest ceiling, of any of these guys, like I said. So, and he's got all the talent around him to make it work. I'm a little worried about the offensive line just because they're breaking in some new guys.
Losing Banks is a big loss for them. He was unbelievable.
For sure. So their line actually regressed from the year prior, surprisingly, last year. But, it was a very talented and experienced offensive line. This year they replaced, I think, 4. They replaced 4 across the offensive line.
I think it was 4. Yeah.
They're still very talented, and they're towers, and they've got the size and everything like that. But you got to break them in. And like we said earlier in the show, those lines that are the most talented and really, produce the most or produce the best are those lines that are seniors. So I'm a little worried about that, but I could see Arch for sure, in New York at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think if you're a QB who's going to the playoffs from the Big Ten or SEC, there's a good chance you get to New York because that's how it is. Mm-hmm. Like as much as Steve loves to bag on him, Drew LR has a good chance to make it to New York because they're going to be a good team. And I also don't think he's nearly as bad as Steve says he's either. And I have told Steve this before. Yeah. But this is now the Chris Phillips's list, projected order of finish this year. For me, the only one that stands out to me, I'm way lower on Florida than this. I would have them somewhere in that 9 to 11 range.
Okay.
But
Texas A&M way too low.
Way too low. Okay. But
I'm half joking.
Yeah. But, no, I know. Yeah. But A&M, those 4 teams, actually 5 even. Ole Miss, A&M, Carolina, Mizzou, Oklahoma, and even Tennessee could throw in. They're all vying for places in the same realm at this point.
Yeah.
They really all are. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a grinder right in the middle there for sure.
Yeah.
Even Missouri. I mean, hey, look at Missouri there at number 9. And we just talked about how great of a coach Drinkwitz is, back-to-back 10-win seasons, and they got Missouri preseason at number 9 in the conference. Like, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, they're another team though that they lost a lot. They have a lot of things to shore up before the season starts.
Definitely.
And we'll see what they do.
Almost all their offensive production.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, running back. Now they brought in a stud running back in Ahmad Hardy, and then they got Kevin Coleman who transferred from Mississippi State, but
right.
new QB, lost Luther Burden, lost Theo Weiss. There's things going on there that they need to figure out and production to replace.
Yep.
How many teams in the conference do you think don't make a bowl game?
Whew, man.
I don't think Mississippi State or Kentucky do, and beyond them, there could be 14 that make it. I think for me, right. the next one that would be I would have Vandy as the next most likely not to make it, because I think Auburn and Arkansas both get a 6th win.
I think so too. I would be if they don't, the wheels have fallen off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would think that's right. I would go with probably 14, 13 or 14 make a bowl. So okay. Mississippi State, Kentucky's tough. Vandy's tough.
Yeah.
I could see a world where Arkansas or Auburn doesn't. If I had to pick one, it's probably probably Arkansas.
Yeah, and I'm lower on Auburn than most, but I still think they get a 6th one. I don't think they miss a bowl game again this year. There's talent there. That's a talented roster.
They're very talented. I'm very excited to watch Cam Coleman again this year.
Yeah. Yeah, they got – and then, bringing in Singleton from Georgia Tech, and then Perry Thompson's another good one. They got good pass catchers.
For sure.
There.
Sure.
One of our team segments, I always have the guest pick. Who are the 2 teams you're picking to make the conference title game?
I'm going to go with, I think Alabama's going to make it. I think they're that good this year. And then I think from there, coin flip between Georgia and LSU.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where my head goes. I'm dumbfounded that Texas is number 1 in the country to start the year. I think that's, and I'm not saying they're not talented. I know they're extraordinarily talented, but there's so much that they have to replace on defense, on the defensive line. They got to replace a lot on the offensive line. They're breaking in a new quarterback. And because of that, I'm just surprised that they're number 1 in the country. I think really that's more so about the fact that there isn't a clear-cut, obvious number 1 team, right? Any of those top 4 to 5 teams in the number 1 or in the coaches poll that came out could really be ranked number 1. If you could make an argument for any of them.
And out of the elite top teams this year, only Clemson and Penn State return their quarterback. I think that's another layer there. All of these teams are breaking in new QBs, it seems like.
Right. And I think that's a big part of it. So, but because of that, though, that's why I don't pick Texas to go to the conference title game. Maybe it's partly my bias, my maroon colored glasses, but I also think that there's an argument that, I just made, which is that they're replacing so much. It's tough to repeat and get back to where you were the next year. And Sark has built a machine there. But replacing all that production, breaking in a new quarterback behind an offensive line that's new, especially out of the gate, you got to play Ohio State. You very well could leave Columbus 0-1, and excuse me, and then from there, like that doesn't have implications for the conference title game, but it has implications for the playoff. So
it does.
There's just some things there with Texas that I think it makes it difficult to put them where I sit now in the preseason into the conference title game, where I look at Alabama, Georgia, and LSU, and I'm a little bit more confident there in what those guys have coming back and the talent there, et cetera, to put them in the conference title game.
Yeah. So I'm going LSU and Bama for mine. I waffle Bama and Texas for the second one, but I do lean Bama. So I'm going LSU and Bama as the 2 I picked for the conference title. Now, what SEC teams make the playoff? And I think this year is different from last year. I think 4 SEC teams get in this year.
Okay.
In looking at it, which the math there, I also think only 3 Big Ten teams get in. So, last year the Big Ten got 4. This year I think it's Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon. I don't think Indiana. I think they're good. I don't think Indiana makes it back.
Okay.
And there's one more spot. We don't know if the ACC will get 2 again. We're not sure about the Big 12, 1 or 2. But I think the SEC gets 4 this year.
I'll go homer with you. I think we get 4 as well. I think it's Alabama, Georgia, LSU, and then let me give you a hot take here. I think the Texas A&M game to end the year is for a playoff spot.
Okay, so I'm going to go LSU, Bama, Texas, Ole Miss is the 4 that get in.
Oh, Ole Miss, man, that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, I like it.
I think Lane finally gets over that hump of. I mean, last year losing 3, they were disappointing. That was a team that should have won 11 or 12 games, it was disappointing that they didn't make it. And I also, in looking at Ole Miss's schedule, I think it's more favorable than it could be. So Ole Miss doesn't play Georgia. Or they do play Georgia. They don't play Alabama. They don't play Texas. They don't play Tennessee.
Gotcha. Okay. I like it. I like it. It's a less talented roster this year at Ole Miss, but that might be why some people are sleeping on them, you know? And so there's definitely a world I could see, especially if Austin Simmons is that dude. And like everybody thinks, you know, who he's going to be. All the folks around Oxford think that he's going to be incredible. And he very well could be. And if he is, then we definitely are talking about Ole Miss for a playoff spot at the end of the year.
Unbiased observer Steve Willis says he's the real deal. So
yeah, no bias there. That's right.
Yeah. But I'm those are the 4 I would have. It's funny, the Mississippi State guy I had on, we always end our show with the hot take, bold take, whatever you want to call it. His bold take was LSU wins a national title.
That is a bold take, man. It could happen. They have a lot of talent. The big question for LSU is, does that defense with all those transfers under Blake Baker finally come together? Because I think they're going to be really talented, really good. They're going to score a lot of points on offense like they have for the past couple of years under Brian Kelly. But the defense has been an abject disaster since Ed Orgeron was walking the sidelines. And so I do think that they will be much improved on defense, and I think that Blake Baker will start to get that under control, even more so than he did last year, because they made a big jump last year. Now they need to make another big jump. They were in the 60s, I think, last year. They need to get to around, say, 20 to 35, probably.
I was going to say 35 is where you need to get to.
Yeah, I think that's right. And then you have a real shot at really making the playoffs. So, do you want to go through A&M schedule real quick, and then we can end on the bold prediction?
I would love to. Yes,
let's do it.
Okay, so we got this is the A&M schedule. So for those of you guys that aren't as familiar with their Biscuits and SEC show, they have one of these for every team and talk about their over and under. So they have the nice graphics here, and thankfully with the A&M one, we don't have any Microsoft Windows 95 graphics you need to get for this one.
No, thank God.
Like you did for some.
Yeah, I know who Sanford is. I know who Utah State is. I didn't have to go find any LIU or
No.
Exactly.
And UTSA, the Roadrunner is a unique one, so it stands out. Yeah.
I'm interested to see that one too, because that's Jeff Traylor there at UTSA.
He's a fantastic coach.
The A&M job. Before Mike Elko was hired, he really tried to make a run at it, and I'm glad we didn't end up hiring him. But
I think he's a hell of a coach. So he's done a very good job since he's been at UTSA.
Sure, it was a little bit of a down year last year, but I think they'll be a little better this year, and it'll just be fun to have him coming to Kyle Field.
And they were a relatively new football program too that he took over. They haven't been around for too long.
Yeah,
but you have the over-under. He's at 7.5. Did you pick them to hit the over or the under?
Yeah, I picked him to hit the over, and part of the reasoning is for our, the nickname that everybody's given us, Texas 8-4. We usually hit 8, and I think that there's definitely 8 wins here on the schedule, and I think the Aggies are going to push for 9 or 10 this year. To be honest with you, and I made that. I think I already said my bold prediction, which is that Texas and Texas A&M are going to be playing for a playoff spot at that game in Austin in November, on November 28th. So. That means that A&M has got to be at least at 8-2 there, right, going into that game, or 9-2.
Yeah, I think going up to through the Arkansas game, I think they only have one. I think they're probably 6-1 going into LSU. Whether that loss is at Notre Dame is going to be incredibly tough to win.
Yep.
Florida could get you. Maybe Auburn could get you, but I think they only lose one game going into LSU. And at that point, you're really looking like the playoffs are a possibility. I agree with you. I definitely think they hit the over. And yeah, that to me, 9 seems likely at this point.
I think
that
so.
Really, not to be a homer again, but that game between them and the Gamecocks could be massive at that point for a team who, if you win that game for both squads, you could be looking at 9 or 10 wins. But if you lose, it's probably only 8 and less of a bowl game. And the Gamecocks, the back end of that schedule is a gauntlet. They have it is a grinder in the last bit of the schedule with them.
Yeah, so it's backloaded big time for the Gamecocks. And I think that this is, you always want to start out of the gate hot, and get some wins under your belt. And this schedule sets up really well for that. That third week at Notre Dame is tough. You could end up 2-1 after that. But Notre Dame's got some questions. So A&M, I think, is going to be very competitive in that game. It's, maybe Notre Dame is favored by like 3 in that game when the line comes out. But then you get Auburn at home. You get a bye after Notre Dame. Then you get Auburn at home. Then you get Mississippi State at home. Then you get the Gators at home. So you get 3 straight home games. And then you have to feel really good about your chances against Arkansas. Sure, you're going to walk into a cauldron in Fayetteville. Arkansas fans hate A&M. But you have owned the Hogs for the better part of the decade, ever since you got into the SEC. So you have to feel good about that game. And then you get to LSU. So very easily the Aggies could be 6-1, head into that LSU game. And then, the schedule just sets up fairly favorably for the Aggies, especially the SEC schedule, the in-conference schedule, because your 2 toughest games are LSU and Texas. And okay, those ones are away, but the other ones, even your away games, you got to feel pretty good about. With Missouri, you beat the doors off of them last year with Connor Weigman starting at quarterback. You've owned Arkansas for a long time. So A&M has a very favorable schedule in that regard to get back to 8-4 at the very least, and potentially push for 9 or 10.
And I think they start 6-1, going into LSU, and then the way I kind of look at it and lump them together, between LSU, Missouri, South Carolina, you probably drop one of those games. And that's like it would be really tough to say you win all 3 of them. But even if you only drop one of them, then you're still good going into the Texas week. And at that point, maybe even with the loss, there's a path to the playoffs there. Tougher, but possible.
Very well could be. The only thing that worries me a little bit as an Aggie fan is that we always drop a game or 2 that we should not drop, and no one expects us to drop. We had that happen a couple times last year down the stretch against Auburn, against USC. And then I'm even forgetting one that we lost to. But so there's a game in there probably that we will drop that is not expected. But even so, I think that you're into that back half of the season and you're near the top of the conference and you're talking about, 9-10 wins, pushing for a potential spot in Atlanta and pushing for a potential spot in the college football playoff.
I think the Gamecocks were the one you forgot.
They were, and I maybe I did that intentionally. But
that's all right.
Hey, you get them. You get the Gamecocks at home this year, right? So you got to feel good about that. And
the since A&M joined the conference, somehow we got paired as crossover rivals.
Right.
The Gamecocks have not played well in Kyle Field, as I'm sure you know well.
That's right. And hey, talk about Arkansas. A&M has owned Arkansas. South Carolina is right behind them. A&M has really beaten South Carolina over the course of their time in the SEC. I think South Carolina has now gotten A&M 2 out of the last 3 years. But before that, just go back and look at the Winsipedia. A&M has mostly owned South Carolina.
They have, absolutely.
So
we always end
in Kyle Field.
We always end with a hot take, bold take. What is yours going into this season?
I think it's the one I mentioned. I think it's A&M and Texas are playing for a playoff spot near the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, being an Aggie, I got to make a bold prediction there for the Aggies. I also, maybe another bold prediction for you is maybe I'll give you two. I'll give you three, man. That's a big bonus here for Offseason After Dark. So that's my first one. Aggies and the Longhorns are playing for a spot in the college football playoff.
Okay.
And then two others from the Aggies. I'll say that Casey Concepcion is in the talk for the Blitnikoff at the end of the year. And then Le'Veon Moss is I'll say he's the first team all SEC running back. I don't know how hot of a take that is, but I think it's hot. He's coming off injury.
I think the Concepcion one's a much hotter take than the Moss one. Yeah, that's a good one.
That means Marcel Reed has had a very good year.
Yes, absolutely. I like it. Those are fantastic takes.
We'll see. Don't clip me.
No, I definitely won't. But viewers here, thank you for staying on and watching with us. This is a fantastic episode. Crossover, one of our SEC After Dark brethren. But again, you can find Bossman and his other half, Hammer, of the Biscuits and SEC show at Biscuits and SEC. They are live every Wednesday night. You should subscribe to the newsletter, follow them on X, YouTube, and, see them. So great to have you, Bossman. Thanks for being here. And we will certainly continue to collaborate and see more of each other.
No doubt, Mike. Thanks for having me, man. This was a lot of fun.
Absolutely.